Hey guys, what's up? It's Monday. So it's once again time for another episode of The Breakfast Club with me, as usual. So, it's been an interesting few weeks, hasn't it? At least for Trump and his crew and anybody who's been paying attention to this. With the investigations yielding some interesting fruit, and with key figures now, you know, pleading guilty and willing to work with FBI investigators. Yeah, let's just say we're going to be in for some rather interesting times, and who knows what new information may be gleaned from the cooperation of these men. And in light of this, Trump has been increasingly more and more erratic, if that can even be believed, and going on and on about how this is a witch hunt and none of it's going to be believed and all this other type of crap that you could come to expect from somebody who feels cornered, as many people have been claiming he's been cornered. And while this is happening, we're also having, leaks coming out from the White House about how disorganized everything is. There's that new book, Fear, that came out, which is supposed to also be an eye-opener, and it's written by the same guy who helped to break, the whole Watergate case back with Nixon way back. So yeah, anybody who's interested in all this sort of political craziness, I'm sure is, quite interested in the goings on. But I'm not really going to be focusing too much on that, since I'm quite sure other people are doing a good job of it. Rather, I'd like to address something that has been stated before this happened, and it's still going on now, which I'm really. It was a stupid statement back then, and it's definitely dumb now, but it's something that needs to be confronted head on. And it's the whole accusation that all this is a witch hunt, that this is all just a conspiracy being done by people who want to promote the deep state, quote unquote, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean. And, this is all just to keep Trump out because, he's getting rid of the elites and the true corrupt people in office, and they're doing whatever they can to hold on to power and keep the American people from rising up, and Trump is the people's champion, and all this other BS that tends to come out of people who don't want to look at reality. And it was silly before, but in light of the evidence that's been coming up recently, it's just like, this is just some desperate statements at this point. This is just a very desperate belief by people who just don't want to accept what's happening in front of them. Let's first touch on the whole thing that, everyone's against Trump because he's an outsider and he was here to clean up the corruption that was in Washington, and because he's done that, this is all being set up to get rid of him so that the corruption can continue. For those people who believe that, have you actually been paying the fuck attention to what's been going on? For someone who's claiming to have, supposedly has come in to drain the swamp, as it were, it's rather interesting just how many corporate swine he's put into power. How many moneyed individuals he's put into government positions, where pretty much all they've been doing is either finding ways to change the laws or bend things or keep certain things from being enforced in order to increase profits for themselves and other companies, or just straight up doing things only because of a particularly ridiculous idealistic agenda. There is no draining of the swamp here. The corruption has only increased. As I pointed out in my last video, the guy even was willing to put in somebody in charge of the National Weather Administration, and the person he put in charge was someone who profits from such information. And this dude has already found ways to limit what this this administration can do to make sure that his profits aren't screwed with. That's a major conflict of interest, and Trump allowed that to happen. And and this happens to be with a bureau that really has no business being tampered with. There is no getting rid of corruption. All we've been seeing is all the wrong people being put into positions of power. It doesn't really matter. Even people in conservative circles have seen this and complained about it. And there's a reason why they're complaining about it, which may surprise some, but I'm going to be getting into that in a moment. Let's go into the main crux of the statement. The whole thing about this is a major conspiracy to, get rid of him by the deep state and all that. Now, I'm not going to deny that there is a very concentrated effort by a large group of people to get rid of him, or to at least disparage him. It's obvious that you see certain circles in the media, pointing out his mistakes or maybe even calling for impeachment. It doesn't really help that he's pretty much thrown most of the media under the bus, with the exception of Fox News, which had been kowtowing to him like crazy. But even Fox has slowly been kind of pushed to the breaking point, because a few pundits here and there on, in the Fox stables are starting to speak out, because he's gone a little bit too far, and the few pundits who are willing to, kind of go off the script, as it were, are realizing that he's threatening their freaking livelihoods as well as the integrity of the freaking country itself. But yeah, the media has been after him. Democrats have definitely been after him, usually for political reasons, but there are also people in conservative circles who have been going after him as well. And the reason why they've been going after him isn't because of some deep conspiracy to put power back into the corrupt and off of the American people's hands. First of all, if you believe that, guys, I know a lot of people who watch this aren't exactly persuaded to believe this sort of thing, but in case you are, it needs to be spelled out to you, apparently. 9 times out of 10, the rich aren't on your side. I know that's a very, broad statement to make, and I'm not trying to make it out that every single last rich person or CEO is a bastard, but a good chunk of them are. That's the reason why there tends to be a general distaste for business in America, and why we tend to look upon CEOs and their ilk as corrupt. How many average citizens are happy with Comcast? How many average citizens are happy with Wells Fargo? How many American citizens are happy with, the crap that Exxon has gotten away with, and so on and so forth? We know that these groups, these businesses, these CEOs who run these major corporations are corrupt. Now, Trump himself, as much as he wants to try to portray himself as this major super mogul businessman, he's a failure in that regard, but he wants to be like them. He's desperate to be seen as somebody powerful and influential. So much so that he was determined to try to inflate his value just so he can be listed in Forbes as one of the richest men around. And that's kind of funny when you consider that Forbes has reported that so many of the people who are put on that list do their best to hide their true value. They don't really want people to know just how much money they make. There's only 3 people who have gone out of their way to try to go, oh, look how much money I'm making, put me on the list. And those 3 people happen to have been a prince of Saudi Arabia, Trump, and a dude that Trump had put into power who originally was supposed to have overseen that organization that I mentioned before. And it turned out that that dude was lying about his wealth. He was lying about a lot of things, apparently. So, yeah, this is a guy who just is like, look at me, look how powerful I am, look how influential I am. I'm a big deal. People like that aren't exactly the type of people that you want in charge of a democratic republic. One that's supposed to be free of the type of corruption that used to plague this country, that is plaguing it again. If you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, just look up the Gilded Age of American history and see what happens when you allow, rampant capitalists to go berserk without any sort of restraint. Now, it isn't just the fact that, he himself is an unstable individual, and that he has pretty much been opening the floodgates, opening up the tax revenues and legislative power to the business elite in this country, and many of them, happen to be very corrupt and greedy individuals. That's a problem in and of itself. But that isn't necessarily what's scaring a lot of, the people who want to get rid of him, because they're elites themselves. Gotta remember that there are a lot of people on the right as well who would love to see this guy removed. Remember the Republican primaries. So many people there did not want to see him win because they knew how unstable the guy was. I mean, sure, many legislators in the Republican Party are taking advantage of the fact that he's in power because they've been trying to push as many bullshit laws as they possibly can to help out the already rich. But the problem here is that the guy just simply isn't fit to lead. And it's obvious to anyone who actually has the qualifications to lead. Not to mention anybody who just has a working brain. It's not some deep conspiracy that so many people are like, oh, this guy's gotta go. It's what anybody would say if they're realizing that the person who happens to be taking the wheel isn't supposed to be taking that wheel. If you're like an employee in a company that's being run into the ground by an idiot CEO or an idiot boss or an idiot manager, you'd want him gone too, wouldn't you? You and just about everyone else who's worried about their livelihood. If you're earning a certain paycheck with a certain company and then you got this new manager who's running that company in the ground, who's making that company lose lots and lots of money, to the point where if you guys don't do something soon, you guys might be out of a job, wouldn't you guys band together and try to find some higher ups to go, hey, this dude's fucking shit up? It's a matter of survival. There comes a point when people have to put their ideologies aside and realize that the captain's gotta go, that the emperor has no clothes. That's pretty much what's going on right now. It's not some, we gotta put people back in the deep state needs to be back in control. No, it's just like people are like, no, this dude is fucking shit up. He's got to go. You have people on the right saying this. I mean, I know in the beginning, if you're stuck in a certain ideology, it's pretty easy to fall prey to the thinking of, oh, they're just saying that he's a good guy. But it was within weeks. Not even months, not even years. It was just within weeks of this guy taking office that the cracks were already beginning to show and people were going like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? I myself have been looking on this through the viewpoint of the guy just does not have the qualifications it takes to be president of the United States. He doesn't have the mindset, he doesn't have the decorum, he doesn't have the class, he doesn't display the mental temperament or the wit needed to be president of, quite frankly, the most powerful country in the world. There's a certain level of certain expectations that you would have for somebody in this position. Think of some of the people who've held this office before, and then look at Trump, and if you're in your right mind, you'll realize that this guy does not belong here. He really doesn't. Even presidents that I happen to have a problem with, quite frankly, were better suited for the job. And people in the right circles, the people who are in charge of the important institutions of this country, understand this. And it is a concern to them. This is why there are so many groups, it seems, so many voices speaking out. It's not just the left. It's not just, activist citizens who are screaming, this guy's gotta go. I mean, they're doing it for a variety of reasons, but one of the main reasons is the guy just isn't fit to lead. And there are now people on the right saying the same thing. They've been saying the same thing since the beginning. It's just that more and more people are finally waking up and going, yeah, this just can't go on. Hell, there was one article I read recently with this one dude who I believe he may have even at one point helped with his campaign. Point blank stated, look, I was trying to stay on board with him. I was trying to apologize for him, but once he threw the FBI under the bus, that was it for me. He said, there's some shit I just will not eat. Because he got it. No leader, no true leader of a country is going to throw their own freaking infrastructure under the bus like that just to save their own skin. Just to make themselves look good. And not only that, but you're doing it while tying yourself to someone who's supposed to embody things that this country is against. totalitarianism. The guy happens to admire men who are known for totalitarianistic viewpoints and actions and governance. Say what you want about the whole, Russia thing and whether Putin's a good guy or not. Most people just say no. But it's the guy, Putin himself, is not exactly somebody known for upholding democratic values. And yet, here is our leader cozying up to him and basically stating, I'd rather be with this guy than my own freaking government, my own, the guys who I rely on to give me information on the very country I help to govern. That is insane. That's unheard of. I know I've touched on this before, but yeah, I honestly think that people who are still on his side just don't really understand how bad that is, which then makes me feel, I just feel saying that this is not a subject you get to talk on. If you don't get why that's a bad thing, if you're actually defending it, that means you really have no clue what it takes to lead the country. You don't know what it means to be a leader. This is not a subject you get to speak on. I know this is a very arrogant sounding thing to say, but unfortunately, it's true. The guy just doesn't have it. He really doesn't. And it's apparent to a great deal of people. And the fact that there are people now basically pleading guilty to heavy charges, that's a big giveaway that something is wrong. It really is. Because quite frankly, there's really no reason, if they're innocent, there's no reason to plead guilty. Unless they got something on you. And these are really high levels of government that people are pleading guilty to. And don't forget, by the way, everyone keeps focusing on the Mueller investigation. Keep focusing on that one, that's the witch hunt. People have forgotten there's at least 6 fucking investigations going on. It's not just the Mueller case. There's some other shit as well. So, yeah, it's not a good look. This is not what America needs right now. It really is. And I'm speaking this from a very objective point of view. I'm not saying this from a patriotic point of view or right point of view or left point of view or whatever. And I'm just simply speaking from just straight observation. Just look at this as plainly as you possibly can in terms of qualifications needed for the job. The guy doesn't have it. And the stuff he's doing is damaging to how the country will run, to its reputation, to its future. Basically, the reason why so many people are speaking out against him, why it seems there's a concentrated effort to clear him out, is because those who are heavily concerned and those who are in the higher levels of office simply want the lights to remain on. That's pretty much what it boils down to. I'm not saying that many of these parties aren't corrupt in their own way. I mean, sheesh. If I wanted to start talking about the Democrats, it would be another long video in and of itself. But anybody who has something at stake with the continuance of this country know that if they don't do something soon, the lights ain't going to be on for much longer. And they can't afford that. That's what this is about. There comes a time when people put aside their differences and ideologies and simply work for the sake of survival. And that's what you're seeing. But hey, I may have it wrong. You guys tell me. I don't know. But that's what I see. Well, this gave you something to think about. And I'll catch you guys later.